Welcome back, Wolfpack. Verlis here, and this how to use one of the most beautiful and hype Pokemon of the 7th generation, Alolan Ninetales. So looking at its typing, it's going to be an Ice Fairy typing. Every dragon just shuddered in fear of this typing. Like, it is crazy how much specific power Alolan Ninetales has, but also does gain a lot of weaknesses. As we can see right here, we're going to be weak against Poison, Rock, Steel, 4 times weakness, and a Fire 2 times weakness right there. So we're going to be afraid of a lot of hits, but we are a not super frail, but kind of frail sweeping Pokemon, which means super effective hits are just bad news for us anyways, since we want to be fast and we want to do damage. On top of that, we get the Dragon Immunity as an Ice-type Pokemon. Again, very terrifying right there. And then we resist Bug, Ice, and Dark. So not a lot of resistances and a solid amount of weaknesses to worry about. Offensively, Ice Fairy is going to get a really solid amount of coverage. Like, Ice, for as bad as it is defensively, does hit a lot of typings really well, and some people do struggle to find coverage on their team for those flying, grass, and ground type Pokemon. So you just go boom, ice, blow everything up. With fairy typing, you do cover for dark and fighting, which is also something you don't hit super effective very often, but the drawback is that you will be heavily resisted by both fire and steel types. So when you're building a team with Alolan Ninetales, take this into consideration, because you take a ground type Pokemon, and then now you have some coverage against those typings. Looking at these stat changes for the Alolan Ninetales, it's really weird how little happened, but how much came from it. So my biggest complaint about regular Ninetales is that it just has 100 on the speed. Could have some more special attack, but it has like weather setting and it does a lot of really good stuff. But 100 speed doesn't make it stand out. 109 speed on the Alolan Ninetales is absolutely awesome. Now, it's not like the greatest, craziest, highest tier sweeping Pokemon, but now it outspeeds what it needs to. It outspeeds Garchomp, it outspeeds 100 base speed Pokemon, and even up to 105, and some very weird ranges as well. So it kind of just lost stats on the attack, which it was never using, and now it becomes faster, and now it has a nice fairy typing. So overall, Alolan Ninetales is going to coverage out really well. Looking at Cerebi, we can see that Alolan Ninetales also gets pretty nuts because it gets the Snow Warning ability. Hailstorm blows when the Pokemon enters battle, so that means we get 5 turns of Hail, and in Hail, Blizzard can't miss. Now we have an Ice-type Pokemon that you can use to stab Blizzard, hitting both opponents in doubles, and it can't miss anymore. So there's some really nice things that happens. I think that's why the low special attack doesn't really matter, because you're providing a lot of speed, you're providing a lot of utility, and then you get enough backup damage from the amount of base power that we're throwing around. Other than that, it's mostly just going to be based off of like pre-evolution and egg moves and stuff, but we get access to the Imprison, Nasty Plot, Ice Beam, Ice Shard, Confuse Ray, or Safeguard just to buy the Alolan form level up. Then we see Blizzard as a TM, and then a lot of other parts of the coverage is going to come from Moonblast. So yeah, Moonblast on the Alolan Ninetales, that's a stab, powerful hit right there. We can even get access to the Freeze Dry. Now we have a super effective hit against water type Pokemon. Then whatever other little technical stuff that we will talk about. Hopping into Pokemon Showdown, we're going to check out the Alolan Ninetales, and pretty much it's just Blizzard, Moonblast, Freeze Dry, Coverage, Protect, whatever. And the thing I want to address first is that Ninetales is not the fastest Pokemon out there. It's not the highest damage Pokemon out there. So all of Ninetales' power is going to be loaded into Snow Warning. I think the best way of thinking about Alolan Ninetales is think Frostlass with Snow Warning. That Frostlass has 1 less special attack and 1 more point of speed. But that's kind of the idea we have here. We have somewhat fast, decent amount of damage, very supportive in doubles, or a good cleanup Pokemon in singles, because if Ninetales has coverage at the end of the battle, or if you really just need a high damage, fast-ish, moonblasting fairy Pokemon, that works. The Blizzard can work out really well. Snow Warning can chip down opponents' Pokemon. That, you know, that 1/16th can be frustrating. Life Orb is a little bit of extra damage. So there's a lot of weird things that Ninetales can do in singles and doubles. Singles, you're going to find like a drop in damage compared to anything else, because Ninetales is just going to have more damage in its non-Alolan form, because Drought increases the damage by fire-type moves by 50%. Hail only makes it to where Blizzard can't miss, so you're getting a slight amount of damage boost from Ice Beam into that Blizzard, comparatively with a Drought, just insane amounts of damage on the same amount of special attack, but lower speed. So there's some trade-offs right here that are going to be really key in understanding when Alolan Ninetales is going to work. On that, you have like Focus Sash, Nasty Plot. So you Nasty Plot, you're doubling your damage, now you're looking like a threat, now you still have a good amount of speed, you're still susceptible to faster Pokemon and Scarf, but depending on the format, like in VGC 2017, Alolan Ninetales does really good because there's not a lot of fast Pokemon out there, so it just has the coverage, and it kills things. And if Dragons or Garchomp becomes a really big force in the meta, then you just bring the Alolan Ninetales, and you're going to do pretty well against it. So we have like double set, you know, you run the Protect, that way you can stay safe, or you can also run the Hidden Power Ground in single battles, because that's really the biggest problem that you have right here. So Blizzard, Moonblast, Freeze Dry, Hidden Power Ground, and if you're running the Nasty Plot, I would recommend just getting rid of the Freeze Dry, because Hidden Power Ground is going to be so much more useful for you. As you can see right here, we go Ice and Fairy. That's a lot of resisted hits. That's fire, that's steel. So pretty much the things we already addressed right there. But then you tech in the ground, and boom, all of those not very effective hits go away off of the Hidden Power Ground, and they convert into super effective hits, while also giving you a lot more super effective hits. So Ice and Fairy is a kind of strange typing, but then Ice Fairy Ground just covers for itself beautifully, and we get a lot of super effective hits and stuff like that. But also, you should look at this for doubles coverage as well, that if you run a Pokemon that has Earthquake, a Pokemon with Earth Power, you're effectively getting the same things. Maybe if you're giving up the Freeze Dry, look into Electric type hits, maybe look into Fire, that way you can complement some more things. And then in doubles, now you can build a really good coverage set, because Alolan Ninetales can be that speedy-ish damage support Pokemon, doing all kinds of weird things right there. So yeah, looking at doubles, Protect, Blizzard, Moonblast, coverage with that speedy nature right there. In singles, I want to make one more point about singles. I feel Ninetales can be an okay cleanup Pokemon. Either it's just like a high coverage one, because if you are running that Freeze Dry, you're hitting water super effective, and then you're getting all that ground out there, and then you're doing a lot of really fun stuff. So a fast Life Orb at the end of the battle can really help out. I do recommend Stealth Rocks with the Alolan Ninetale. That way you can just kind of get Stealth Rocks damage, Snow Warning damage, and then just kind of chipping around, and then you do damage with like Blizzard, Moonblast, and then next thing you know, the opponent might not have anything left if they just have Pokemon that can't deal with it. So there's going to be some good play right there. And then looking at doubles, I feel that you can run some other really interesting things as well. Ninetales gets a Charm, so you have a fast way to cut your opponent's attack in half. Calm Mind can work pretty well if they do not respect you as a threat, I will say, because like, okay, it's Alolan Ninetales, I can blow it up in one turn anyways. I really recommend the Focus Sash on the Alolan Ninetales, because if it eats too strong of a hit, then bad things are going to happen. But with Calm Mind, if they have special attackers, you outspeed, you set the Calm Mind, you survive that hit, and now you're looking at a Blizzard hitting both opponents, and that's another really powerful point for Ninetales and doubles, that Blizzard hits both opponents with perfect accuracy as long as Hail is up, and then we just go and run it with that Snow Warning, and then things are going to be crazy right there. So now we have a +1 Blizzard, a +1 Moonblast, and that's just because you kind of cheesed out a Calm Mind right there. We also have Encore if you want to get your opponent stuck in a loop, or Disable if you want to lock them out from their most powerful attack, and in a lot of cases you're outspeeding them, then disabling them. So Encore or Disable will buy you a free turn right there, and then you still have a lot of damage and cool stuff going on like that. But it does mean giving up coverage, and it does mean also trying to find synergy. You know, Ninetales plus Garchomp kind of works, but it also kind of doesn't, because if you're setting up Snow Warning, if you're putting all this power in Snow Warning, then you kind of want some Snow synergy as well, but then that still leaves you very vulnerable to Steel-type Pokemon, to Fire-type Pokemon. So that's why Hail, I feel Hail is very powerful because of what happens with Blizzard, but a lot of the coverage and a lot of the other things that you gain out of it is going to be kind of tricky, but there's a way of saving this. That all we have to do is go and look into other Pokemon. So let's go and look at Pokemon that have the Snow Cloak ability. We can filter that out, and we can see there's a lot of really good Pokemon. Then we have Mamoswine. I feel Mamoswine is a wonderful complement to the Ninetales. That's why I have Protect. You know, you just Mamoswine, Earthquake, Stab, Earthquake, also has a lot of really other good things behind it that can throw out the Ice Shard for priority if it needs to. It can follow damage, it's physical, complementing special. Ninetales can Protect on those Earthquake turns, Mamoswine can still do something while Ninetales is Blizzard. Like, Mamoswine just does a lot of really fun stuff while packing a 130 attack, so still a crazy amount of damage. Also, maybe just, you know, you can gain something out of it, and that's why this is where things start getting really funny, is like you have the Snow Cloak ability under the Hail, so maybe Mamoswine just dodges a hit because of that. So you're kind of adding a little bit of a frustration factor to what's going on as well. Snow Cloak also has some other really cool Pokemon that play into it. Glaceon Glaceon, that's a 130 special attack, high amounts of damage on that Blizzard. And then we have Pokemon with Slush Rush. So we have Beartic and Alolan Sandslash for that Slush Rush. Now, interestingly enough, Sandslash is the only one to get the Earthquake, but has less damage than the Beware. However, there's a nice little bit of synergy going on, because Sandslash is 4 times weak to fighting, but Ninetales just throws out a Moonblast, and hopefully outspeeds that fighting type Pokemon and does really well. So there is a bit of synergy that can be gained from Ninetales and Sandslash. Also with Sandslash's speed, it doesn't have to invest as heavily. That at this range right here, actually no, we need to make sure it's at level 50, because that's going to be like VGC format and doubles and whatnot. But pretty much, if you get down to this range right here, we're looking at outspeeding 135 base speed Pokemon under that Slush Rush ability. So boom, we do that, and then we just have a lot of damage. The rest goes into attack, the rest goes into hit points, and then we can still tank out pretty well. Running a Life Orb with Protect could still do pretty good, and then we get access to things like the Iron Head. And yeah, so now we have steel coverage on top of our fairy, on top of our ground, on top of whatever we're running physically, so that's where we can throw in some extra damage. Now it's mostly going to be about speed and stuff, because there's a lot of weird things that can happen if you're running the Mamoswine. That Mamoswine could just run Scarf, which means you might have to switch your Alolan Ninetales into a Levitate or Flying Pokemon afterwards, and then the synergy just kind of spreads out depending on what you're doing. So what it really shows is that Ninetales is... It gets little bits of power, you know. Snow Warning gives it power. Blizzard, Moonblast, like that Ice Fairy typing, that gives it power. It's a little bit of extra speed, that gives it power. Now, it's not an overwhelmingly, insanely unstoppable Pokemon, but it still does a lot of respectable things, and with the right synergy, can succeed more than we've seen Ninetales succeed in the past, potentially. So let's go and check out some damage calculations. So I was just seeing what the Blizzard can do. Singles, Blizzard, Timid Nature with the Alolan Ninetales. We outspeed Silvally, and then we don't 2-hit KO it. Well, if we have the Life Orb, then we 2-hit KO it, and then we're finding 2-hit KOs, and that means if we're going +2 on the Nasty Plot, this is why people say Life Orb Nasty Plot is really good, but it requires, like, the perfect setup, and then also you understand that you're going to die soon. That, you know, if you already eat a hit on that turn for setting up the Nasty Plot, then you're taking 10% every turn with a Life Orb. You might be able to get 2 or 3 KOs, and that's kind of it on the Alolan Ninetales. But then again, we have, you know, Hidden Power Ground, Blizzard, Moonblast, Nasty Plot, Life Orb, Alolan Ninetales. It's a big gamble, but if you can bring it in at the right time, say the opponent's locked into Outrage on a Dragon-type Pokemon, awesome, now they can't attack us because we're a Fairy type, so that's a free turn right there. If it's a bulky Pokemon that's going for some kind of setup, or it's just like really stubborn in its ways, that could be a good time for the Alolan Ninetales. That just kind of shows, like, once we can get in that setup, once we can survive some things, like against the Garchomp is always an interesting matchup, because that Earthquake, 73%, as long as it's not going to be Life Orb or Scarf, because then we get too many problems. But if we can still find that, you know, we survive something, we Nasty Plot, well, now we get to, like, Life Orb hit twice or 3 times before we go down, but then that's just an insane amount of damage off our Blizzard, our Moonblast, or whatever we're throwing. Looking at what we can survive, we can actually tank up a Tapu Koko Life Orb boosted, Electro Terrain boosted hit right here. So it shows our damage return isn't the most insane ever, but really in doubles, like if we can tank up that hit, we have that above average special defense, and then we can kind of use it to our advantage after that. You know, we get good damage onto Tapu Koko. If Tapu Koko is focusing us, our other Pokemon goes and cleans it up. Let's see what we have on the Hidden Power Ground as well. Hidden Power Ground against Tapu Koko. Even at the +2 doesn't look to KO, it's just kind of like that little bit of extra coverage. Blizzard is just going to be more damage. I think that's another thing to consider with the Hidden Power Ground. That's not for super effective hits. It's for resisted hits that you can now make super effective, because Hidden Power Ground, that doubles to 120, well, Blizzard with Stab is going to be more than 120 on that super effective hit. So something to consider right there. I was looking at what else we can survive. Choice Specs Primarina Moonblast. We have enough special defense to be able to survive something like that. Modest Choice Specs, you know, worst case scenario, we do pretty good right there. So this is also kind of showing the damage check on the Freeze Dry. It does alright, but it would need to be Life Orb boosted for 2-hit KO. So we outspeed Freeze Dry. Then I think we die because, like, the Life Orb burn. So yeah, that's just some problems right there. At least showing that we can survive some weird stuff and maybe set up for later parts of the game. Celesteela, we don't do a lot of damage. I was just looking for doubles because we're kind of like a speedy-ish support trying to hurt things. So if we're just Timid Nature throwing out a Blizzard on Celesteela, we're not even going to do a quarter of its health if it's like a full special defense set, which is kind of a lot of what you're seeing in VGC, or you're seeing like some weird mix sets as well. So you're also going to need maybe electric Pokemon, maybe something else that can help deal with the Celesteela, but Blizzard does have a chance to freeze. It's a little bit of chip damage, and you're also damaging the opponent's other Pokemon as well, but showing that's a bad matchup in the Celesteela. However, this is where Focus Sash could be very good, that you're doing 2 hits of Blizzard while it's trying to focus you down. The Focus Sash, opponent might not be ready for that, then you can protect next turn, and then you can try to focus down the Celesteela. So you can use the Ninetales to bait it out and then try to get something happening against other very powerful Pokemon. And then I just look into some other things like the Tapu Koko with a Glaceon, because I did mention Glaceon, like we bring in Snowcloak Glaceon with a modest Specs Blizzard under Ninetales, Hail, Snow Warning shenanigans, and yeah, we just one-hit KO. Even in doubles, Blizzard is enough to one-shot the Tapu Koko, not counting the other damage that we're going to be seeing. And then also, it can tank up Tapu Koko's hit pretty well, maxing out hit points, maxing out special attack. So Tapu Koko outspeeds, focuses Glaceon, Glaceon kills the Tapu Koko, gets insane damage on the next Pokemon, and then that means you know you're safe enough to have Alolan Ninetales potentially outspeed their Pokemon, go for a single target Moonblast, single target something, Freeze Dry, whatever. I think Freeze Dry works when you're running the double Blizzard, but you know, you're looking for the hidden power ground in singles and then freeze dry in doubles potentially. So if it's a water type Pokemon, then you freeze dry it and then you just still win off of crazy amounts of damage conversion. So now you have like a weakened Glaceon and a still pretty fresh Alolan Ninetales doing crazy amounts of damage and good stuff like that. So if you guys enjoy the video, a lot of really weird technical talk about the Alolan Ninetales because it's kind of bad, but kind of good, and if you use it just right, it's a very powerful and rewarding Pokemon. Like, I've seen this thing tear it up. So it's one of those weird Pokemon that doesn't look good in theory, but it can be pretty excellent in practice. So if you guys enjoyed the video, hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.